Well, being who I am makes me happy, but the thing is being transgender is only a very small part of who I am. It's not everything, and I know there are people out there who make it everything. I don't. It's one thing that I do.
My partner. It's the first one, I guess, a given, and probably a bit of a cliche, but truly, we've been together my whole transition. It was really hard for them when we first got together, and I was like, yeah, so I'm having surgery in 3 months. And they were like, I see. And I was like, you're gonna have to move in with me because my parents aren't gonna want to deal with that. So they are a massive, the biggest support system in my life, and they make me very happy.
What makes me happy? Just being able to live my life to the fullest and confidently and without any barriers as such. Just being able to be yourself after a long time, yeah, that's probably it.
Probably I quite like reading, I like bike rides, I have this queer song circle thing that I do with some friends on a Sunday that's really nice. I quite that it's a lot of reading, it's a lot of writing and then creating stuff via that and writing poetry and bits.
I think just normal things, what normal people enjoy, just a bit of sunshine. It's really nice outside right now, even though it's scalding, it's so hot, but sometimes it's so nice just to come out from the underground, awful bank station where you feel like a rat essentially, and then you come out and it's you can feel the sunshine on your face and you can see the greenery and you're so happy. Makes me very happy.
I always believe that I'll have no friends in life, I don't know, it's because it scared me a lot, being trans, and I thought I'll not meet authentic people in life, but meetups in Soho and meeting Ray and everyone and seeing them live their authentic life really gave me a possibility to keep dreaming actually.
As soon as you start presenting differently, you essentially are walking around and you feel like you have a spotlight on you. That changes the way you feel, and that does actually also provoke a reaction in people. Sometimes it's hard to smile. That's what people want to see when they look at you, and sometimes it's hard when people are constantly looking at you, and sometimes those looks are not positive. But then there's days where you just have a run of good luck. And those days you can go home and just think you've had a fantastic day.
When I stand in the mirror, there's a way I feel good about myself. Back then, before I started transitioning, I would look in the mirror and I don't even want to continue seeing that image. Either you're you begin to, if I could do this, if only I could do this, if only I could do this, if only this, if only this, the if only. And the thing about transitioning, if I may put it, it's it's not a one-night thing, it's like a mortgage. You take your time. You're not going to look like a person who has been taking hormones for 5 years, 10 years, and you think you're going to take it in a year and you'll also be the same thing as them. It's a mortgage. You take your time. If it's a 5-year mortgage, you're going to pay for the 5-year mortgage, and you're paying for it through all the things. You can do all the, all the voice speech therapy, the HRT, the surgery, the psychotherapy. Everything is in that mortgage. But once you clear off the mortgage and it's paid, you look in the mirror damn this. You begin to smile at yourself and you're whoa.
So I haven't had top surgery yet. However, I've worked towards kind of getting to the stage where I don't necessarily need it so much. I will in the long run eventually have it, but I went to the beach for the first time this year and went topless, and no one blinked an eye. It was one of those moments where I was like, I've done the thing. I've worked hard. My body has reached the level where no one would guess that I haven't had top surgery. And it was yes, okay.
That's great.
Yeah.
I've noticed as I've got more comfortable in myself, especially with my performance art, how much more I'm willing to use my body as part of the art beyond its transness, I think. I think so much of my early work was based on just the trans aspect of my identity, so it's been interesting, especially with more recent works where I'll play with my body as its own entity aside from the labels which are ascribed to it. which I think is kind of more interesting, and it's led to like more confidence, I think.
I'm very excited. I've always been very excited. That was one of the big things when I was figuring out that I was trans. I never saw myself wanting to be a woman proposing to a woman. I always saw myself as a man proposing to a woman. And when I figured it out, I was like, oh, of course. That makes so much sense now. So it's one of those like bucket list things I'm pretty excited to do.
So what makes me happy? Living my life as best as I can. Striving for happiness in every aspect of my life. And for once, choosing to support myself rather than leaving myself last. Letting me be me. Permission. Hi, my name is Lavery and my pronouns are he, him.
My name's Amanda and my pronouns are she, her.
My name is Zaremba, my pronouns are they, them.
My name is Kay Rowan and my pronouns are she, her.
So my name's Morag and my pronouns are he, they.
My name is Askar, surname Sulankulov, and my pronouns are he, him.
So my name is Amanda Kamanda, and my pronouns she, her, hers.
My name is Eva Echo and my pronouns are she, they.
My name's Angus Jones and my pronouns are they, them, their.
My name's Samuel Bailey and my pronouns are he, him.
My name is Jack and my pronouns are he, him.
So I'm Kat Egan, I use she and they pronouns.
My name is Maya Chowla and my pronouns are she and her.
My name is Nikki Fisher, my pronouns are she, her.
We're here today talking very specifically about trans joy.
Yeah.
And I was wondering what comes to mind when you hear those words.
I think so much comes to mind. The thing I was thinking about most recently was like trans joy as a result of liberation, feeling safe enough to be like silly. In the same way, like feeling safe enough to be, or like free enough to be yourself and that be celebrated or lifted up in a moment, in a story, in another connection with another human being. Trans people, they are a part of like a minority group, right? And minority groups like face persecution and discrimination and prejudice, and they are literally like in a world that is against them. So then to share a moment where like the joy you feel doesn't leave that part of you behind is a result of like liberation and of allyship and equality. It can be as simple as putting on a binder for the first time, or to having sex with your partner for the first time, or simply just having someone say your name. And that's really special, and it's an acknowledgement of who you are.
Do you know, I know this is the title of the film, and I've been thinking about this. I don't know if I can say what is trans joy. I can say what is joy. And joy is moving towards what makes you happiness. We all of us in this world have one goal that we all share, and that is to be happy. Everybody is trying to be happy, however that is for them. And trans joy is just a small part of who you are. It's just you giving yourself permission and the relief of being who you are. And if that label turns out to be transgender, okay. But it's really not about being transgender. It's about being you. It's about me being me and giving myself permission to be me. And the joy in that is one that I didn't even know was an option.
I would say genuine, true happiness. Like you've never experienced it before. Like before you transition, you might think, oh, I've been happy. And then you transition and you have these little moments, like maybe someone uses your correct pronouns or your new name, or you get a card that says brother on it, and then there's this new level of happiness. And then there's things that you used to hate, like shopping or going to the beach, and then you enjoy that. And it's those things that is trans joy in my head. Things that you didn't used to enjoy, or a happiness that you've never experienced at another level.
I've thought long and hard about this one. I'm still working out in my head. I think trans joy to me is like it's the moments of euphoria offset from like some of the darker moments. Transness is characterized so much by struggle and suffering and difficulty, and I think most representations and stuff like that still miss the wonderful joy of it. Really nice moments of like feeling at one with yourself while you're with your friends, feeling unequivocally yourself in a way that I don't think that many people have because they've never had to grapple with what their self means as a concept. Those moments offset with the difficulty, offset with that, and in contrast with that really makes like trans joy.
I love when new patients come in and we get to start them on hormones, and you can see it's like a big thing. Like people are so happy to be there and they're so like excited. It's really nice to see people because you see them come back, you see the same people come back every 6 months, or you've checked in more regularly, and you can see people are like standing taller, they're more confident, they're doing more things, and it's just nice to watch people be more themselves. I think you can see it in how they respond to you and how they feel.
When I look at it from like a work perspective and stuff like that, I interact with a lot of people who are like getting on hormones for the first time and stuff. And the reason that that's such a joyous moment isn't just because of the getting on hormones, it's because of the struggle that's come before. It's because of all of the difficulty that's led to that moment that leads to such an intense euphoria and joy and happiness that's so palpable and so nice to see. It makes everything else kind of work, I think.
If you look at sometimes in the community forums, people are like, oh, trigger warning, today this, today that. Every time you're hearing the negative things in the news, and it raises your anxiety, and at some point, even the things that are not happening in your life, you also begin to get scared because you're hearing somebody you're like, oh my God, this happened to a certain person. Oh, this happened to a certain person. What about me? But when we always have this perspective of, good things, sharing the good stuff, then other people also begin sharing their good perspectives. Oh, I can't believe I got my ID. Oh, I can't believe I got my this. And it begins to say that, yes, we are making progress, And trans joy is that collective thing that we all get in affirming our identities and celebrating the small wins, both on an individual perspective, which begins with accepting the self, and a global perspective, which is like more of a policy change or a legislative reform that gives us and protects our rights.
I think what it is that trans joy is hope. Like, life isn't perfect as soon as you come out. There's a lot of struggle and there's a lot of challenge, and some of that comes from internal stuff and some of that comes from external stuff. But the thing that makes the difference between like before me and the now me is that I actually have hope that tomorrow isn't defined by how today went. It could still be better. And I never used to feel like that before. I used to just feel like every day was a slog and a chore, and I had to build myself in the morning and then deconstruct myself in the evening every single day. And now there's hope. Now that there's this, every conversation I have is the idea that we can still make things better. And I think that comes from community. It comes from having a group of people around you who you don't have to describe yourself to. You don't have to go through that process of explaining what it means to be trans or defining transness with this community. You just have people around you who have a shared language and shared life experiences. And some of them are vastly different and some of them are similar. And that beautiful complexity that makes up the world is so much more interesting and so much more fascinating and beautiful than the kind of reduced simplicity that we're sometimes told about the world, that billions of people can be split into two genders who all have exactly the same fates in life. Like, that's such a boring way to view the world, and it's so much more vivid to just understand that there is hope in that complexity and that there is beauty in being a complicated, fully rounded human being.
I think the trans joy specifically, you feel it when you don't even feel it, if that makes sense. I remember in my last year of uni, I moved in with my partner for a couple of months, and so that was like with his mates, his flatmates, and it was like 8 people in the house. And I at first thought, like, sounds awful. They're gonna like this. These are like computer science bros, like straight cis. How am I even gonna explain to them who I am and how I would like to be called? I would just like be made fun of. That's not what I want. But I moved in and like 3 people there were trans, and more than that, all the cis straight bros with those jumpers and hoodies and never like coming out from their rooms with their computers, they were so accepting. Like, they didn't even like question it. They didn't have to think about like what pronouns to use. It was just like, once I introduced myself and told them, like, you know, I'm a guy, I think I'm a guy, I use he, him pronouns, please call me that. And that was that. That was literally that. You can feel so much pressure on yourself because it feels like you've chosen this lifestyle and you have to like just suffer through this every time you come out, every time you try to explain. But because they were just normal people and I was a normal guy to them, it felt so nice. It didn't feel like I chose anything. It felt like what most people, most non-trans people would be born into and not even think about it.
I like gender euphoria. I like first feelings of gender euphoria, like the first time that I went out presenting certain ways when I was like 17, 18, 19, they felt really euphoric. And there's less moments like that these days because I've filled in more of the cracks as I've just gotten more confident and there's less new experiences happening. But there's still, when those first new experiences of euphoria happened, they make me really happy.
So like when I got my diagnosis, it was one of those things where like a lot of things just slid into place. And then when I started hormones, that was a whole nother level of confidence. And everyone at work was like, oh, you just keep growing in confidence and you seem so much happier. And that was also just reassuring and like validating in that, yeah, this is me, like, wicked.
I think really specifically of this one video this patient sent me after he'd had top surgery. It was interesting because I'm not involved in that pathway at all, but we'd had a lot of conversations about it. I'd helped chase up some of the referrals and things like that, and it was the first time he'd had his like bandages and things taken off, and you can see him in the mirror and he's pulling his top down and he's just running his hand down his chest and he looks so happy. Like, I don't think I've ever seen anyone look that happy about something. You can just see all like so much like a weight has like lifted. And then I emailed back, I was like, I had a little cry. This is really nice, and it's just really lovely to see people being more confident and to just be more relaxed in who they are, I'd say.
What is the nicest for me is when I get to exist in a space knowing I'm trans. Nobody really knows that I'm trans, or if they do, I don't know. And I'm not being treated any differently. They're not being treated any differently to me. And I just get to live my life the way that I want to live it, receiving no either specifically negative or specifically positive treatment. And I think that's where Pride Month usually brings up a lot of contention for me, because I think people assume that like it's Pride Month and there's rainbows everywhere and it's all about trans people and it's all about queer people, but I don't want to be plastered over everything. I don't need any of that to be happy. I just want to be able to do my job, to go home, to be with my partner, to afford my bills and get to do great things like this on a weekend, you know, go to the beach, take my shirt off, not get any looks, anything like that, and just be, I think that's what it is for me.
My partner and I do something that we call sardining, from sardine. If we are on holiday in a sea, I will lie on water. My partner will sort of support me from underneath, and with waves she will move my body. It is so silly and so beautifully joyous, and I think it is quintessential trans joy, because it is happiness, it is love, it is being free of any expectation and feeling the happiness that is connected to the body, but the body is perfectly good as it is. There's nothing with the body that needs to be changed. It is perfect in this moment. It is one of the most joyous and silly and fantastic things.
For me, trans joy has ultimately evolved during my transition. What it is now is very different to how it was back then. For me now, trans joy is simply just existing, like lying in bed on a Sunday morning with my wife, watching trash on TV, exchanging memes with Boomer, our little dog, just running around the bed as well. Just appreciating that moment, because once upon a time I never thought that I would have that you know, be able to exist in that sort of moment or space. So for me, that is the joy, because joy knowing that I've come through so much to achieve something that so many people take for granted. Back then, you know, years ago, joy was just being able to get through each day. And I'd be happy with that. But now it's knowing that there is a future, we have long-term plans, and that we're able to explore this world together.
While things are getting better, things in remote areas, like in London and stuff, things are getting better. In remote areas, it's still the same story as it was several years ago, and that's tough. The part of my job that I draw the most happiness from is doing what I can to support those, like having phone calls with people who are in remote areas, talking about like how they can find community within their spaces and stuff like that. And I think that's been kind of where I draw quite a lot of like my energy from, because it is tough. And it's like when you're in London, it can be really easy to get caught up in the fact that you've got this like large trans community around you and there's events going on constantly and there's all this stuff. But in the sticks, it's not the same. And a lot of those conversations are kind of what I'm kind of having nowadays, I guess.
We've got the support group, so then people will come in and be like, oh, I started hormones, or I booked my top surgery and stuff. But I also have a social media platform where I've got quite a few followers, and they'll like message me and be like, oh, I did this today, and oh, I did this today. I'm like, that's amazing. Like, it just brings me joy to see other people experiencing it and going through the same things that maybe I've gone through, or things that I want to go through. Like, yeah, definitely.
I always see trans joy in others before anything else, even though it's people who reach out to me for help or they need advice, because I guess I've been there. I've been through a lot of what they've been through, having come out 6 years ago and kind of crammed a lot into a short space of time. So being able to see their joy and help them to bring that joy out is essentially why I love doing what I do, because I want to create change that's long-lasting, and I want people to focus on the good, not the bad. At one point, I was pretty much a complete loner in life. I detached myself from my biological family. We've never really got on, so for me that's been quite a natural journey to go down. But then finding my soulmate, my best friend, who's now my wife, and We'll be married for 10 years this November, so having this journey together has been absolutely amazing. My best friend, even though she lives in Newquay, we talk as much as we can, but knowing that we're there for each other is something that, you know, you can't ever take for granted, because despite the distance, knowing that someone out there appreciates you, loves you, and really cares for what you do is amazing. It's, you know, it brings me so much joy. And also my over-enthusiastic little Chihuahua called Boomer, who, no matter what I do, will always be there and is always happy to see me.
The secondary family, so, you know, you've your born family, but then you have your wider family, and that's where you really have a choice to create a happy family. Because you don't get to choose who your mother, father, brother, sister, blah, 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 blah is. And sometimes they're great and sometimes you don't see eye to eye. Okay, fine. But you do have a choice to make your own family. And that is trans joy as well. Because you will find people in your family, you will draw people to you that become your trans family. And that is a system of support. And it is different for everybody, but that system of support allows you to get on with being who you are, because you all have that in common. And that's trans joy, I think, is not just yourself, but it is the family and the community that builds around you, and you all help each other.
Chosen family is significantly more important, in my opinion, purely because they choose to be there. It's not about, you know, being blood related or anything like that out of obligation. They choose to put themselves in my life. They choose to go through all the ups and downs that I go through, and that in turn gives me strength to go through my transition, especially when it can get incredibly difficult and frustrating at times.
There is not a one-size-fits-all model for trans joy, and it's also not possible to feel trans joy all the time. And I think that there can be this unfair pressure that we put on ourselves that we have to be okay all of the time, otherwise the people who treat us with disregard are right, which I just think is unfair. No human being can be happy all the time, but I've had far more good days now than I used to do previously, and I think that's a victory. And whatever form trans joy comes in for anybody who's watching this is totally valid. That can be huge, massive things of like celebration and festival, or it can just be the simple fact that it's easier to get up out of bed in the morning than it was previously. Those are both incredible, wonderful things that should be treasured and are equally as formative.